Good morning, parents. Very happy to have you all here. We just have a couple of minutes to go to 11, and I'm going to begin at sharp 11. But while we are waiting, there's a video that I would like you all to watch. So I'm just going to start with that. And hopefully, we'll have all the participants and we'll begin in the next 3 to 4 minutes.
One, two, three, four, five.
All right, you guys ready?
I prefer that my parents, if I play bad, don't say anything. And if I play well, it doesn't really matter if they compliment me on how I play. I just I don't know, I prefer my parents to, not talk as much.
I can hear them like cheering me on, and I'm like thinking in my head, just shut it, I'm trying to focus.
My mom yells in Spanish, like, go, go, go.
My mom usually says, use the backboard. You should use the backboard. I get angry because it annoys me.
I'm kind of embarrassed.
She tells me to get in the position that my coach told me not to get in. I'm like, well, no. And then she's like, get in your position. I'm like, no.
I get a little tense when I have a certain score to get, and she's like, you gotta get that whatever score. And I'm like, I don't like it when they try to push me even more, even though I'm trying really, really hard.
Coming from the coach's mouth is kind of better, I feel like, because your parents are there to support you and your coach is there to help you, you know?
You just start screaming, Valentina, run faster, make a basket. But I just start going slower every time when she says that.
The other people were like, wow, that mom is like really wanting her kid to win.
In my inside, you can't see it, but I'm inside saying, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet. Sometimes I just look into space.
I try to listen to them and then do what they say to so they don't start yelling again. I don't really want them to give me that much advice because then I might forget it all. Sometimes I get nervous when they yell and nobody else is yelling.
Sometimes it can embarrass me, like a lot.
Wait. What's going on? We're just trying to do this, but you want us to try harder?
Well, I am.
I'm not going into a game not trying my hardest. That'd be like messed up.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure.
Sometimes when they try to get the ball in basketball, you kind of think in your head that they're kind of like gonna push you and you're gonna fall and hurt yourself.
They don't need to always be telling me what to do every minute of the game. They kind of just gotta let me play.
I love when you say really nice. I got it, Mom.
I'd like to look back and I'd like to see you smile or give me a thumbs up.
Mom, I wish you would be a little bit quieter. Say you play good and you couldn't get them next time.
When they smile and say good job.
Mom and Dad,
Thank you for
loving me. I love
Be my supporter.
when I'm upset, my mom and dad cheer me up.
Sometimes I forget about all the work that they do for me.
Be my biggest fan.
We need a lot of love. I want you to know
I need big hugs.
I love the snacks that you bring me. It makes me happy when you always encourage me.
Thank you, Mom and Dad.
Please just be my mom and dad. Yep, that's it.
All right, I think the reason why I wanted to start with this is because it's such a beautiful video that kind of summarizes what young athletes feel and what they want from us as parents. And over the next 1 hour, we are going to try and move closer to understanding what they feel, what their needs are, and more specifically, why they feel pressure, how we can help them manage that pressure more effectively, and get closer to being the best supportive parents that we can be towards our children. So we'll begin. Just give me a second. I'm just going to share my screen. All right, so today we will focus on helping our athletes manage pressure. There are a lot of things for us to talk about, discuss, but we will focus on this topic for today. And before we do that, I would like to share just a couple of minutes talking to you all about Samiksha Sports. Some of you may know about us. For most of you, you all may not know what we do. And also, I'd like to share a little bit about myself before spending an hour with you. So Samiksha is India's first and one of the most trusted sports psychology consultancy. We started about 15 years back. So me and my partner Gayatri Vartak, who also played badminton, she was top 10 in the world. I used to play tennis competitively and played um, at the junior international level. So it was our own experience in sport that kind of helped us understand the need of mental training and sports psychology, and the fact that it is important to support athletes not only technically, tactically, physically, but also mentally. And it is with that vision that we started Samiksha. When I'm going to talk about pressure today, there are a couple of key things that I'd like to share as to why this topic. Like I said, I used to play tennis, and it was from my own playing experience that this concept of pressure really intrigued me. It is something that I experienced. I saw my colleagues experience it who played with me. And I also heard a lot about how other athletes felt pressure, and sometimes that is what took away results that one should have gotten. So my playing experience has a big contribution to why this subject and topic is of key interest to me. Because of this key interest, I also did my PhD, which was on the topic of pressure. And I'm going to bring in some of my learnings today and share it with you. So I spent about 5 to 7 years studying pressure and what happens to athletes mentally and physically under pressure. Along with that, over the last 15 to 18 years, I've also been fortunate to work with elite athletes and to understand how they cope with pressure and perform successfully. So I think my experience with the best in sport also helps me understand that well. And through this work that I've done, I've had the opportunity to interact with a lot of elite athletes, including someone like a Virat Kohli, and have had the opportunity to understand how is it that top athletes think about pressure, how is it that they not only manage pressure but also thrive under pressure. So over the next 1 hour, I'm actually going to try and build in as much as possible in today's masterclass and share with you as much as possible. Having said that, one of my other learnings also as a parent and as a sports psychologist is that as parents, we are also learners of time, right? There is no, it's not like we do one particular thing and, there's going to be a transition overnight. And I think such is true also for this masterclass. I would like you to think about this as your first step towards learning and not the only step towards learning. And think about yourselves as somebody who's ready to learn as a sport parent. And to be able to do that, we're not going to kind of leave you just with this masterclass. We would like to offer you a couple of things as a continued process as well. So that's something that I would like to share right at the outset, that it's not only about today, and you should continue to stick on if you believe that this is going to be a continuous learning. So towards the end, we would like to give you a blueprint towards how you can build yourself as a parent, especially in this area, to also manage your own pressures as a parent and to help your child manage his or her pressures. Um, and we will also talk to you about what continued support we'll be able to offer you post this masterclass. So we will get there, but there is a lot that I'd like to share in today's day, and let's dive straight in. So why speak about pressure? Also during this time that I'm speaking, I know there is a raise of hands. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat box as in how we go. I'm going to try and answer them as much as possible, and we will keep it engaging and interacting, right? So, why pressure? Okay, I think there are two important things why understanding pressure as a sport parent is important. One is because we often think about it as a villain, and athletes also feel like, okay, this is something that's harmful, that's dangerous, and that's the notion that we always carry around with us, that this is a villain in sport. Um, and I would like to help you change that to some extent and learn about that. And the second thing is that pressure is also very, very misunderstood. Uh, and again, over the next couple of minutes, I would like to kind of bust that misunderstanding and help you understand, how pressure should really be understood. And hence, speaking about pressure, I feel is such an important topic and a concept in sport. I would like to start by sharing a story with you, and I think many of you will relate to this story. I want you to listen carefully. I know many of you may be doing something on the side and might be busy. Even if you're not looking at the screens, that's fine. Try and listen to the master class, and I think that's also something that will be helpful. I think the fact that you all are here on Sunday morning, kind of tells that you're committed towards your child and your sport. So I think it's a great beginning, and I would like to make it as easy as possible. So if you can be completely attentive, that's great. But even if you're doing something on the side, I think just listening to today will also be helpful. So let me start with a story. All right. There's a young cricketer, and this young cricketer is gone onto the field to bat, and there is obviously a bowler who's bowling, and it's a pace bowler. And every time the bowler comes in to bowl to this young cricketer who's batting, the mom sort of closes her eyes and, quenches her fist a little bit. And there's someone sitting next to her, and he says, "Why aren't you watching your son play?" And she says that, "Oh, I'm worried, what if he gets out?" Now, I want you to pause for a second and just question yourself in your own context, in your own sport, right, that your child is involved in. Have you felt something like this, right? Many of us have felt something like that. Um, and what happens is our communication, whether it's verbal or in this case, non-verbal, right? Our emotional reactions can become a child's interpretation of pressure. And this is called, so for example, what this parent experienced right now is something called as a threat state or a threat mindset. Okay, so what's happening here really? We really don't know if the batter or the child who's batting, we don't know if he's really perceiving any pressure, right? But this pressure that you're feeling as a parent, okay, definitely has an impact on the young athlete, right? And what happens to the young athlete, right? He starts to think, what if I get out? Am I going to disappoint my parent? Okay, this is dangerous. I can't fail here, right? So what happens is our non-verbal or verbal communication, okay, becomes our child's way of thinking about pressure and perceiving pressure. Okay, and what we want to focus on today is moving this threat mindset that we all may have as parents at times, and not purposely. Okay, there's a reason why we feel like that, and there's a lot of science behind what happens in our mind and body. And if you all want to learn more about it, I can share more towards the end. But what we want to do is we want to change this threat mindset in with that lies within us as parents at different times. And we also want to ensure that if our child perceives a threat state or a threat mindset, we want to move it to something more positive, which we call as the challenge mindset. And that is exactly what we will be working on today a little bit, while we discuss and we go forward, right? So one important thing to understand here is that pressure can be perceived in different ways. Most often, it's the threat mindset that we get into and our children get into. But there is another way, which is the challenge mindset, and that's what we will try and work on. Now, before we work on it, I'd just like to spend a couple of minutes helping you understand what is pressure. And I really enjoy giving this analogy because it's a very simple analogy to understand, right? Now, if you were able to think about a can, right? A can of a Coke or any fizzy drink, okay? This can of fizzy drink has pressure placed inside of it, right? And it's important for this drink to taste good, to give you a feel good, and for it to have the properties that it needs to have, right? If the pressure goes away, right? If there is no pressure in this can of Coca-Cola or any fizzy drink, what will happen to it is that it will go flat, it will lose its energy, and obviously we will not enjoy this drink at all. Okay. And I want you to think about pressure in that particular way, that a little bit of pressure is something that is important for us to be able to enjoy a competitive situation and for our children to enjoy a competitive situation. Pressure is also something that gives our children energy, focus, and the readiness to perform. So if this can was to go completely flat, right, the drink wouldn't be enjoyable. And similarly, if there is no pressure at all, there is no readiness to perform. So some amount of pressure is required and will always be there in any sport, in any competitive situation. Okay. But what happens to our kids most times when they're playing, right? Or even to us at times in different situations as a parent. Let's imagine that if we were to shake this can of Coke, okay, or this fizzy drink, okay, when we shake it, okay, it explodes. And similarly, that is what our athletes and our young children feel, okay, when things shake up for them a little too much. And that is what they call as anxiety, nervousness, or sometimes when they're playing on the field, on the court, in water, we call that choking under pressure. Okay. So the idea is not to remove pressure from the sporting environment or the lives of our children at all. In fact, the more elite they become or the more they progress in the sport, okay, there is going to be more pressure. And to tell you honestly, when we do work at the elite level, we purposefully add more pressure in training, in different situations, and we call it as pressure training. Okay, so at no time are we really trying to get rid of pressure or remove the pressure. And a lot of times that's an error that we make because we misunderstand pressure. And as parents, that's something that comes to us naturally to be protective. And as a part of that, we try and make things easy for them and remove this pressure. That's not what we need to do. Okay, there will be pressure when they start playing. When they are in pressure situations, we need to give them the tools and tactics, uh, to manage this pressure and eventually add more pressure. What happens a lot of times is that, there's pressure building, and as they are progressing and they're playing more competitive sport, right, the pressure is only increasing. And at no point have we actually taught them what to do with this pressure. And a lot of times, because we also don't have a very clear answer. And that is what we'll hopefully try and find in today's session, that, when there is pressure, we need to teach them how to manage it and then add the pressure, right? So if we skip the middle part where we are teaching them how to manage pressure, then there's pressure, there's added pressure, there's added pressure, and then it's just like shaking up this can, which is going to explode. And then that's what we see when they perform, which is, feeling nervous, feeling pressure, feeling anxiety, right? So we want to help them manage this, and that's exactly what we're going to do now, right? Now, this is actually something that I have taken from a framework, okay, which is like a blueprint. And I'm going to talk to you more about the blueprint, but I have actually taken this part directly from my book and I have put it here. Um, there is a science behind what happens to the brain and what happens to the body, okay, under pressure. And I'm going to try and explain this science to you, okay, and I'm going to simplify it right now, okay, and this will help you then understand how we can intervene to manage pressure, right? So what happens when we are, or our children are in a pressure situation? Okay, it could be a match point in tennis, it could be deuce, in cricket, it could be power play, it could be bowling in death overs, it could be the last 50 meters in a sprint. So every sport will have different situations that will naturally have a lot of pressure. And our children are going to be in those situations, right? Sometimes it's time pressure, okay, different pressures. So when we are in a pressure situation, or when our athletes are in a pressure situation, what our brain naturally does is it tries to evaluate what are the demands that are placed on me and what are the resources that I have to cope with these demands. This is what the brain starts evaluating, right? You can see that in the red and the green on the screen, which I've tried to blow up a little bit. Okay, so what are the demands that a child is facing or an athlete is facing? There's competition, there are expectation, there's an opponent, different demands, right? And then what are the resources that the brain is evaluating? What is it trying to understand? What are the skills that I have to cope with this demand? Right? Have I prepared enough? Have I been in these situations before and coped with it well? What is the support that I have? Right? And you as a parent are a big, big part, more than what you can imagine. And those who of you who saw the first video, I think will understand of the importance that you play in this support system, right? These are all resources and there are many more. Okay, so when our young athletes are in a pressure situation, the brain starts evaluating demands resources, right? If the athlete is able to, or if our player is able to draw upon more resources, okay, then he's able to stay confident, he's able to focus on the controllables, and he's able to focus on himself, right? These are all terms that we often talk to our children about. Okay, we say, oh, you should stay confident, you should believe in yourself, control on whatever is in your control, focus on those things. It's very easy to say, right? But we all know very hard for us or our athletes to implement, right? But our children were able to actually implement if we are able to teach them how to draw on these resources. Okay. If our child, okay, feels like this task is very, very demanding, it's highly competitive, lot of expectations either from themselves or coaches or us as parents or anything else, pressure of opponent being higher ranked or sometimes even lower ranked, because then there's pressure to win against them, right? If the brain starts evaluating more of these things and drawing on these demands, okay, the athlete starts feeling very uncertain. I don't know what's going to happen. Okay, there's a perception of psychological danger. What if I lose? Okay, and then it feels like, oh my God, this is going to be a lot of effort to win from here or to do well from here. Okay, so if our children are able to draw more resources, they will more get into a challenge state, right? The higher, very high percentage for them to get into a challenge mindset. But if they start drawing upon the demands and get overwhelmed by the demands, then they get into the threat mindset, which is what we spoke about. Now, when this process happens in the mind, right, it all first happens in the brain, and our mind and body are obviously linked, right? So, when this first happens in the brain, there are changes in our physiological system, including the cardiovascular system, which is mainly the heart function, right? So, you will have your children often say, my heart starts beating faster, I get butterflies in my stomach. You may find your children going to the washroom before a match, okay, or my legs just feel stiff and I feel like I can't move, or palms feel sweaty. These are all just signs and symptoms of changes that are happening in the cardiovascular system, right? So what happens is there is a change in the cardiovascular system if our athlete is in the challenge mindset versus the threat mindset. So in the challenge mindset, okay, there is low, it's called TPR, total peripheral resistance. So there is low resistance, so there is more blood flow, right, to the body, to the brain. Okay, there's high cardiac output. Whereas in the threat mindset, there is high total resistance, right? And there is low cardiac output and many other such changes. Okay, because these changes are happening in the body, okay, that is why there are changes in decision making, concentration, hand-eye coordination, effort, and many other things which we can observe when our children are performing. Okay, so we often only see this part, okay, that okay, he wasn't focused, you didn't concentrate when you were supposed to concentrate, you took wrong decisions, right? But this is all happening because it has started with evaluation of demands and resources, and then there is confidence or uncertainty, and then there is a perception of challenge state versus a threat mindset. Then there are changes in the body, and because there are changes in the body, it has affected the mind and body response. And because it has affected the mind and body response, so if we are in the challenge mindset, there is good decision making, good hand-eye coordination, good effort, good attention. But if we are in the threat mindset, or if our children are in the threat mindset while playing, okay, then there is poor decision making, poor hand-eye coordination, poor effort, poor focus or concentration. And then what we see is the performance, which is either the athlete has thrived under pressure and performed positively under pressure situations, or the child has crumbled under pressure and then there is a poor performance. So you can actually see this graph on this, actually this framework on the left hand side, right, of the screen, which is what actually happens under pressure. And this is in a very simple way, as I wanted to explain to you, the science behind what happens under pressure. So how do we intervene? How do we help our children, which is what we want to speak about, right? It is to ensure that right when they are in the pressure situation, how can we help them manage their demands with high resources? How can we help them feel resourceful, right? With their skills, preparation, and support, okay, so that they can cope with their demands. Like I said, those demands are not going anywhere. We can't remove them, and that's not what we should be doing, but we should help them feel more resourceful and bring in more resources to help them, right? So hopefully everybody's understood this part. I'm just going to quickly look at the chat box if there are any questions about what we've covered so far. Is there a bigger picture of the pressure situation? Yes, I will share that with y'all. Okay, I will tell y'all where y'all will get it towards the end of the workshop. There is a, I hope everyone's able to hear me. Is there a problem? Because I have a message that says low volume.
All good.
All good. Okay, great. All right, so hopefully we've understood this. Okay, now let's try and focus on resources. And I'm going to take one main factor that will add on to the resources that your child will perceive and that you can provide to your child. And I think one of the biggest factors, okay, is language. And language matters more than what we think and what we could imagine. Okay. Before we actually talk about this, okay, I have a question for you and I would like you all to put this in the chat box. I'm just going to open to the chat box. I want you all to just respond and tell me what is it that you would typically say to your child before an event or a match or a performance or a game. So if you all can quickly, I'll give you all a minute to just put in the chat box as to what do you all say. There's no right or wrong here, so we're not there's no judgment here. It's just for me to understand so that we can take it up and try and make sure that we're able to build on this and I'm able to provide more to you all.
Dear, it's showing chat is not available.
It is available because I think everybody's else is able to put it. Okay. Okay, great. So, enjoy, give your best, these are some commonly things that we say. And these are good. There's nothing wrong in that at all. Um, However, it is generic, okay, and we will try and understand how we can provide better feedback and better communication before after games, before after a win, after a loss, and we will build on that. And the reason why I say that why language is important is because when our children are under pressure, okay, and we are giving them general feedback or a general comment such as all the best, okay, I want you all to think whether that really adds value to them, right? Or give your best, okay. Like we saw in the initial video, yes, they are going to try and give their best. But as parents, I think we have a huge opportunity to add more value, okay, to uh, help them manage that pressure. Because before a game, regardless of, whether it's being perceived as easy, tough, there is pressure, right? So let's try and see how we can provide more value through our language and communication. Okay, we'll take another scenario. Okay. Let's say that your child has lost, okay, and that's always a tough one, right? And the situation is that your son or daughter has lost to a highly rated or a ranked player, okay. Can you again put in the chat box as to what you would say?
Sorry, I missed the question. What did you say?
The question is that your daughter or your son has lost to a highly rated or a highly ranked player or an opponent who seems better ranked or rated than your child, and he or she has lost this game or this match. So what would you say to your child after the match or the game or the performance? Okay, nice try. Great experience. Okay. Okay. We'll come back better prepared. Learn from your mistakes. That's totally all right. Okay. Good. Some good responses there. I'm just going to try and share a little more about some of these responses and try and break up as to how a child perceives these responses and how we should be careful about what we are saying, because a lot of these things we are saying because we feel it's the right thing to say, or we've learned as parents is the right thing to say. So let's look at that. So I've taken two responses here. Okay. The first response is never mind, like most of y'all have also written that it's okay, it's all right, never mind, your opponent was a strong player. Okay. And the second response is never mind, your opponent played really well today. Okay. If y'all can observe, there's a very subtle difference in both these responses. Okay. But this subtle difference has a great impact on the mind of the athlete and whether he's going to take this match as a threatful experience or as a challenged experience, right? Response A is more of a threat state or a threat mindset response, okay, because there is some permanency in that. It's something that's going to bring down the confidence of your child because you're saying that, oh, he's a strong player, right? So, am I ever going to be able to beat a strong player? Okay. But in the second response, okay, it's more of a challenge response because it's only talking about that particular game or that particular match and the fact that it's in that match that the opponent was the better player and or played better, right? So there's no permanency there. Okay, so what we say to our children before and after matches and throughout actually has a lot of importance. And I think the point that I'm trying to make here is to try and start reflecting more on what we are saying, because a lot of times we are just saying something because it feels right in that moment to say that. Okay. And what I would actually encourage you all to do is write down different situations and scenarios that your child goes through. And just like you put down what you typically say before a match, like all the best, give your best, trust yourself, leave the rest, to actually think whether that's what your child needs, because nobody other than you really knows what your child needs and what is going to help him feel more confident, more in control, and more focused on himself. Right? These are the three things that are going to help them feel resourceful. So when we are saying all the best or give your best, okay, are we really adding on to any resource that they can draw upon? Or are we just saying something because we feel that's what is to be said? Right? So I think it will be a really good exercise, just like I did this right now. And I've given you this example. I think it will be really good for you all to put some scenarios down, and try and put down your responses right now. And maybe one of the things that you all can do, so the book that I have taken this from is available and I'll talk to you all about it. There are a lot of such examples. For example, what if your child does not play to potential or underperforms? What if your child wants to quit, right? What if your child is saying that he's feeling nervous or pressure before a match? What if he's won a very important match, okay? Or he's lost a match that he himself or she herself didn't expect to lose? What if you observe poor behaviors like poor body language on court or on field? What if your athlete is unwilling to go for practice? You find them skipping practice. So what can you say to them? What communication can help and is important is something that is all actually given in this book, right? And you all can use that as a blueprint or as a guide if you need further aid to work on this aspect. Okay, we'll take one more example. Let's take a big win example. Okay. So let's say that your son or daughter has won the tournament. Okay. What would you say to your child? You can put this in your chat, in the chat box. I think now you all are going to think and give me better responses. Hard work is paid. Okay. Amazing, brilliant performance. Great. All right. Congrats, champion. Time to celebrate. Excellent. I think they have some of these have very positive things in them. And yes, you should praise them and celebrate the win. Okay. But again, here I've just tried to give you two examples to see how, subtle differences can actually impact the mindset again in a more challenged state. Okay. So, for example, a response A would be, well done, you won, or congratulations on the win of the tournament, which is something I would typically say again because that's what we know what should be said. And the second response is, congrats on the way. Sorry, Mukesh, can you please mute yourself? All right. And the second response is, congrats on the way you handled yourself throughout the tournament, which helped you win. Okay, now again, if you see, the subtle change is that in response B, you're actually building on a resource for your child. You're telling them that they have done something well, which is handled themselves well, whether it's with their attitude, whatever it is, right? And that's a resource for them. That's something that they should take away, right? Whereas response A is congratulations, okay? But I would say it can bring in some threat because what's left without the win? Okay, you're congratulating on the win, but what's left without the win? Okay, so these subtle changes in communication can have a huge impact. And at this time, it may feel really overwhelming about how to make these subtle changes. But trust me, once you get your mind into it, and if you want, you could use the guidebook and the blueprint that I will talk to you all about. It's not that difficult at all, right? And like I said, like I said, a good start would be just writing down different scenarios that your child goes through and your current responses, and then thinking about that chart that I showed you about challenge and threat, about demands and resources, and whether my communication is providing any of the resources to my child, or is it just that I'm saying something? It could still be positive, but if it's not adding on to a resource that they need, it's not as effective, right? So that's something that you can start thinking about. Okay, like I said, that we don't just want to leave you here. Okay, hopefully this got you a good understanding of different mindsets that happen and that can occur under pressure. Okay, we've understood what pressure is. Okay, that our beliefs have an impact on our child's beliefs and how they interpret pressure. Okay, and what to do about it, right? So demands and resources is a very simple way of reflecting on this and then subtly changing the language that you're using. Now, what we would like to do, I think, or what your next step for learning could be, one is that we will be starting a community for sport parents. It'll be a simple WhatsApp community where we want to try and provide more resources to you as parents. This is free. This is just something because a lot of times there's a one-time workshop and nothing after that, and you forget what you've learned and it just becomes a very temporary thing. So we want to continue to build on this in the best possible way. So we will keep sharing and guiding you through that community in the best possible way. So that's something that we're going to do for all of you. The second, like I said, is there's a book that I've launched. It's called Challenge Mode On. It's a guide, like I said, for parents. First, I think a lot of it is to understand a little more about the science of pressure. I did tell you a lot about it as well, but to understand it more deeply and through different situations and scenarios and a lot of real life examples, and also how you can help yourself as a parent to perceive pressure more positively and manage it more effectively. I think that's a foundation and the crux of everything. So there is a lot more on that. And there is also obviously a whole lot on how you can use this blueprint with your children to help them manage pressure. The reason why I wrote this was because as sports psychologists, we are not as much there with children, obviously, as much as you as parents. You're spending the most amount of time, even if it's little time, it's the most impactful time. So that's the reason to kind of share, like I said, this knowledge that I felt I learned, whether it's through my PhD, whether it's through my experiences working with elite athletes, grassroots athletes, and just doing this work over the last 15 to 18 years. So this book is available on Amazon. At the moment, it's like you see, it's very modestly priced. Again, the reason is to share this knowledge. That's at the core of it. So at the moment, it is also on a 10% discount. So I would encourage you all to buy this. Sorry, can you all please mute yourself? That would be helpful. Um, so yes, it is available right now. I would encourage you all to buy it now so that you don't procrastinate and delay it, and it kind of helps you build on this blueprint and this method that we spoke about today. There's a QR code right there, so you could feel free to scan the QR code. And we will also, like I said, be adding you to the community to help you all, and we will be sharing a whole lot there as well. So I will give you all a minute to just scan if you'd like to scan and get this right away. And then in a minute, I'm going to share a little more with y'all. So one of the things that, I wanted to do even as a part of this book and also to share with y'all as parents is to talk to people who, have worked with young athletes in their stage of development and have eventually grown to become champions, right? And to understand what happened in their home environments. So there's also a chapter in the book about how to create a challenge environment at home, and there is a special kind of a chapter and a foreword or a message from Ajit Tendulkar, because I felt like he's one key important person who's brought up Sachin from a young age, who's been a part of his journey. So he's written a lot about what they did at home. And like I said, in a moment, I also spoke to him and I got a video with him to share with y'all as parents, which I'm going to show y'all, as to what is the approach that they had at home when he was in his young years, right? What kind of communication did they have with him? Whether it was verbal or non-verbal, what was the focus of his parents? What did they speak to Sachin about? What did they speak? What did they not speak to him about? Right. So I'm going to just in a minute share that video with you, and I would like you all to watch that to understand what happened in his home environment. Right. So I will just do that in a moment. Hopefully, you all have scanned this, so you all have the link. Technical aspects of the game should be left only to the coach, or that family should not interfere? Or do you think it's okay for family to talk?
Unless someone from the family, like I miss family, but I've actually gone out and practice whatever little bit.
Yeah.
But if I hadn't played cricket,
Yeah.
I would have never told him about the technical aspect of it, because without experiencing something, I can't advise someone. But other aspects family can take care of. Keeping we are happy, keeping relaxed. I believe the most important point is expectations. Uh, Nobody expected Sachin to score hundreds. We just wanted him to play good game, play good cricket. And parents just wanted him to. They were happy because he was enjoying the game. And I was happy because he was batting well. It just happened that he used to come home and saying, "Oh, I scored 100." We never asked him how many runs he got to that. Always for the next game, or in the next time you have to score 200 or nothing like that. So keep playing well. If I hadn't scored runs, still it would probably okay business. So if you expect, then it becomes a condition on player, and then under conditions tougher to the child.
So I think there are some really simple things that he said. And I think those align with what we've been talking about today, right? That expectations is a demand. And that's something that never happened in their home culture at any point. Even if he was scoring 100 or not scoring 100, he wasn't asked about how many runs. And I think regardless of which sport and which context our children are in, I think that's a very important takeaway. And the most important thing I think he said at the beginning is that, whether focusing on whether he's happy, right? And that being a main important role of the parents or the family. And it doesn't mean making things simple or easy. It means that whether they are happy. And I think that was such a powerful thing that he said, but also a very simple thing that he said. Um, so I just wanted to share that with y'all. Hopefully that kind of adds value to help understand how even the world's best, okay, focus on such simple things. We have a couple of minutes, so I will take one or two questions. If you all have a question about what we covered today, or anything about pressure, managing pressure, feel free to put that in the chat box and I will take a question or two before we conclude today.
Um, Doctor, can I ask a question? Is that okay? Or would you
Yeah,
prefer it in the
sure.
chat box? Hi.
Yeah, you can ask a question, no problem.
Sure, great. So I think it was a very good session. Thank you so much. Interestingly, Harshad sir had actually recommended me reading the book which you had given, which you had showed earlier. So I've already started on the journey.
Great to know.
Having said, having said that, a couple of things which I just wanted, which came on the top of my head. One is it was really interesting to see the way Sachin's brother shared his thoughts. Right, I only felt that aren't the times slightly different than when Sachin was playing versus what our kids are playing now. Times are different, expectations are different, pressure of the game is different, right? While I understand his point of view that it should be more of coaches, but you know most of us, if I may say, right, do not have um, can I say specialized coaches who are dedicatedly focusing on individual kids. It's generally one coach who is looking at 4 or 5 kids and not like a one-on-one throughout. So, and that is where
Yeah,
I feel that
yes.
parents, as a father,
Yeah,
right? I'm sorry,
yeah.
just take that 10 seconds more. As a father, I've actually played a lot of active cricket, right, and I continue to play even now, professional leather ball cricket. I feel that uh, maybe my son does not get that required um, focus or attention from the coach. And when I go and see his matches, I find that here is where he's failing or here is where he's not doing well. And that's where I feel that I need to engage more with him. Make note of the small flaws. That's very, very small corrections. Let him know that these are things. Work with the coach on these things and get it done. So is that the right thing?
Yes, so I think good question, and that is also something that I've tried to speak about in the book, that especially in the younger years of your child's sporting development, most of them are involved in a group setup and there's no one-on-one coaching, right? So your role as a parent is slightly different. And I think what you're doing is correct because you also have the understanding of the sport. So I think from situation to situation and scenario to scenario, it will differ a little bit. But I think one of the key roles as a parent is to constantly make sure that your child, even if it's in a group context, that your child has the right coach, and that you're as much as possible, when you are observing, when you are making a note of things, as much as possible sharing that with the coach and that coming to your child via the coach. But it cannot happen 100% of the times. I agree, it's quite an unrealistic thing to happen. So because you understand the game, and if your child is responding positively to that, that's something that you should do. I think, that's also a very important and a key nuance to understand, because every child's needs are different, whether it's an emotional need, or any other need. And sometimes as parents, we are giving and we are doing, but does that match the need of the child? So I think making sure that both these things match together is also very important. And I think at this age, one of the things that you should and try and focus on in any sport that your child, for all parents, this is actually, there is involved in that, um, how much of it is something that your child is interested in doing himself or herself, meaning, to what extent is he taking up improvements, wanting to train, and how much of it is he able to do on his or her own. I think that's a big indicator of how invested the child feels. And then as a parent, you can make a judgment about to what extent you should get involved. So I think there are these small nuances that definitely need to be considered, depending on child to child and sport to sport. So I think broadly speaking, yes, you have played the sport yourself at a good level and have an understanding. Hence, you are in a position to aid your child in that manner as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Um, all right. Thanks everybody for attending the session. I hope that it has added some value and has given you some perspective about pressure and helped you understand pressure a little more deeply, and what it is that we can do as parents. So that's all from me today. Thanks again for attending. I'm just going to end with a video that I think summarizes the ethos of this masterclass. Thank you for your time again today.